So this is also using the CNC machine, the Carbide 3D cutter, but this is using the more detailed program called Meshcam. And so when I open that up, you'll want to again make it full screen. And this is if I have a JPEG or PNG or some image to bring in. So I'm going to start by clicking in the top left corner and go select my file. Everybody knows I happen to like the Cubs, so I'm going to go ahead and do the Cubs. Now it's telling me right here in this dialog box, like, what size do I want this to be? 1 by 1 is pretty darn small. So I know I'm going to have a fairly large work surface, so I'm going to make mine 3.5 by 3.5. And notice it kept it in relationship to each other, in proportion to each other. Now you need to decide inches or millimeters. Most of you are going to choose inches. You also want to make sure that you tell it that it can auto resize or allow for the resize if needed. This height mapping becomes important. If you choose the Z minus, what it's going to do is it's going to cut around my shape. So like where I had the C of the Cubs, it's going to cut that all area around that. If I have the Z plus, then it's going to cut and leave the Cubs logo sticking up. And if you want to see, there's an illustration in the manual that will show you exactly what it's going to do. I'm going to leave mine at Z plus. So there, it's putting that in there. Next thing I want to do is come down and I want to do my smooth relief. Now a little bit does go a long way here. Maybe I want to make it a little bit rougher, and I'll take a look at what that's going to do. A little bit does go a long way here as far as how smooth you want it. Just realize the smoother, the longer it's going to take. So once that's done, you're going to go into the next step down here with your toolpath, and you're going to tell it what size that you're cutting on. You're going to tell it what height you want it to cut at, things like that. So the first one we're going to go to is called Define Stock. And my stock size that I am using is going to be how big my piece of wood or my material is that I'm cutting on. Now my piece of wood happens to be an 8 by 8, and my Z again is how deep I'm going to want that. You do want to make sure center X and center Y and center Z are checked, just as a good rule of thumb, because then it will try to center your image on your material. So once I have all of those set, my Z, I want it to leave it at the top and then go down just a little bit. So I'm going to leave my depth here at 0.125, and then I'll hit OK. My next item I need to go to on the toolpath is to tell it what the retract height is. I do not need it to come up a half an inch. 0.25 will be good. That's a 1/4 of an inch up above. Then the third item is to set program 0. So you want to tell it where to zero at. You want to leave the Z position at the top. And remember from the other program, maybe you didn't see it, but we're always going to work from the bottom left. Bottom left in this program is where it starts out at 0. And so I'm going to go ahead and tell it those are the two places. So again, Z is at the top, XY position starts at the bottom left. Then I'm going to hit OK. Next item is to set my maximum depth. What is the maximum I want it to cut? You have some options. You can manually set it, or I could tell it I want it to only go halfway through my wood. That is as deep as I want it to go. And so I'm going to go ahead and leave that there at 0.175. Click OK. My next step then is to go to Tools in the menu bar up here and tell it the Carbide Auto Path. Now I'm going to say this is the type of material I have. It should have remembered that from the last time you've used it. If you happen to be using something different, it would be right here. I also need to tell it what kind of cutter I'm using on this. And then I also need to say this is the type of machining that I want. I'm going to go ahead and OK on that. I think I may have forgotten to push the review toolpath settings, but let's see. I don't know that I need to review them because I think the wizard will just automatically run that for me. And from having to look at the details versus the wizard will be much easier. And you do have to wait just a couple minutes for this to run. Now, if I wanted to add text of my own that I had typed or something, I would need to design that, like you could design it on your MacBook and take a screenshot of that And then you could bring that image in as well, and so you could have both images on your material at the exact same time. It would just be a matter of re-adding that file up here at the top and telling it how to set. You aren't just stuck with one image. To make it quicker and easier for the program, if you could combine the two already, that would be much easier. You know, you could go to like Google Drawings, or you could go to any of the, you know, you could probably even go to Microsoft Word and have your items there, and then take a screenshot of those, and that's going to be a PNG, which is a file type that this reads. And we will wait patiently for this to finish loading. I'm going to just jump to the other screen that I have open here so you can see what it's going to do. So on this other screen over here, I had already preset this. Let's wait on this to focus, because holy cow. There we go. What it will pop up after it is done with that calculating setup is it will tell you how long it's going to take to machine this. And you can see, in this case, this is going to take 47 minutes to do. If I would go to all of these checked, it looks crazy, doesn't it? That's going to take me 380 minutes. That is too long. You do not need to monopolize a machine for that long. Plus, oh my goodness, you maybe want to reconsider like having it cut so much. So I'm going to take off some of these items, and if I take some of them off, I can see that my machining time then is going to change. And it just depends on what I've decided that I want to leave set. So I'm going to get rid of rough operations. I'm going to leave waterline and pencil on. And then in this case, when I estimate my machining time, it goes down to 47 minutes. Unchecking one more box would make it go lower, I'm sure. Then I'm going to save that toolpath, and that's what I see. And this is where I'm going to save it. Notice it saves as a .nc file, and then I'm going to be ready to print that.